This meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, January the 8th, 6:35. Again. We have our invocation by...
That's the city council, Mayor. Can we allow the chairman to start his also?
Yes.
At the same time?
Okay. It's 6:35 p.m. I wish to apologize for being late. I would like to convene this meeting of the Floresville 4A Board.
The invocation will be given by Mr. Jocelyn.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. May we bow our heads, please? Lord Jesus, we thank you for every blessing, for we know all good things come from you. Thank you, Lord, for showing us our sinful nature, and thank you for shedding your sinless blood for our redemption. Lord, thank you for the rain. We lift up your name, for you alone are worthy to be worshiped and praised. Amen.
We have established quorum. We have Councilman Morales, Councilman Miller, Councilman Rodriguez, Councilman Guerrero, and Councilwoman Castillo.
Now, may we do the same for the board?
Yes.
I have Councilman Page Fuller. Councilman, I'm sorry.
Board member.
Page Fuller.
That's okay.
Mrs. Conway. And, yes.
Melissa.
Ms. Pop. And I don't see,
Mr. Gleason.
and myself, I don't see Mark.
Okay. Now, if everyone will please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Do we have any citizen comments at this time? Okay.
How many 4A members are we missing? So is there
One.
Is there any more places? Is that what's it? 5? We have 5?
We have 5.
Is it Mr. Kaufman that's
Mr.
missing?
Hoffman is the one that we're missing.
Is he the one that said he wanted to resign somewhere I heard?
It's, he has been discussing the issue of possibly doing that, but he needs to formally do that with his chairman, and then we can take action.
Okay. First, we have an update on pending litigation.
Good evening. Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity. Madam Mayor, Mr. Chair, council members, and 4A board members. My name is Rob Killen with the law firm Kaufman & Killen, who provide general counsel service to the 4A Corporation. Some of you may be familiar with my wife, Melissa Castro Killen, who's done work for both 4A and for the city of Floresville in the past. And she's at home with a baby. We tag team, but our firm does economic development, both on behalf of private clients as well as governmental entities. So I'm very happy that you've allowed us to provide this service for the 4A, and thank you again for inviting us. We're going to talk about the pending litigation. That is, it's obviously a litigation, or not pending, it's actual ongoing litigation. So that's an executive session item. So I would ask that you call an executive session.
Okay. May I have a motion to go into executive session?
I make a motion that we go into executive session.
Second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to need to make the same motion.
Yeah.
I move that we go into executive session. Or do I have a motion to go into executive session?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
I guess there are no steps.
Yeah, this was just started. I just didn't stop when I should stop.
He had no idea.
No, I eventually and it tore cartilage, so they had to remove all that, repair it, and then shake down some bones so that I had more motion.
Something we don't know, it doesn't matter.
Oh, I'm going back to play.
No,
That's
we'll be
why
set.
life's not
Like
right.
executive session,
Exactly.
minutes are set.
Yeah. But it's a 4 month.
Any more pictures than I have for these?
See you later.
You'll have a
Thanks.
safe trip. Tell Melissa and maybe we say hi.
Will do, will do.
Be sure and tell Melissa hello for me.
Will do, thank you.
And the baby.
Michael, I got your.
Oh, that, okay.
Again, thank you very much, all. Great
Thank you
evening.
for your time.
Now entering back from executive session at 7:12. No action to be taken from the executive session. No?
Does 4A board need to go back into,
Same thing.
Yes.
yes. We're 4A board's back in session at 7:12 in executive session.
Okay, now we're gonna continue. In our presentations, first will be the operational procedures overview with Andy and Gloria.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and board members. I just wanted to give you a quick brief on how the Office of the City Manager became responsible for the operations on a daily basis of the event center. On July 18, 2011, at the special council meeting on a Monday on item 3, new business, letter D, the action item was C&A with respect to recommendations of the president of the 4A Corporation, city manager, and finance director for the city to assume responsibility of the day-to-day operations and management of the Floresville Civic Center, including maintenance of separate records and accounts related thereto, providing joint signature authority for operation, maintenance of said accounts, and establish an effective date. Sponsored by Louis Rosenberg and Mayor Daniel Tejada. Since that date, the Office of the City Manager with the staff have been doing the operations, daily operations of the center to include all financial record keeping. My understanding, with the new council comes new ideas. Asked, what do you think, Andy Johnson, about it? I said, great. Always ask for more help, always need more help, and always want to be on the positive end of everything. So I was asked to give an operational overview of what's going on right now. I've asked Ms. Gloria Martinez, who is the staff member, city staff member that's responsible for daily operations. She's housed out there. She's done an excellent job. As we know, we had a Parks and Recreation Director running that office, and Ms. Gloria was the assistant. She's since continued to take those duties and then the additional duties and made it happen. So I've asked her to write something, and she's going to keep it brief so we can keep going. Thank you, Ms. Gloria.
Good evening. As staff member of the Floresville Event Center, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my everything on daily, what I do daily, and actually 7 days a week. Okay? So my day starts between 7:30 and 8, mostly every day. Sometimes when I have oil companies booked, I have to be there at 5:30 a.m. to open building and set them up for their meetings. Sometimes I have to meet with them the night before when their flight arrives to open buildings so they can set up their equipment. Duties that I am doing now are booking events, which includes ensuring that the event center is being utilized to its fullest capacity. I am also responsible for coordination of rentals, handling current tenants, leasing building spaces to provide community programs, which I keep a community service binder. Attending to all my tenants that book for weddings, quinceañeras, as far as doing their setups, running bar and hiring bar staff, which is difficult at times to find the qualified persons to do this job. I usually do not work the bar, and I don't like to work the bar, but sometimes one of my staff cancels at the last minute, or we have a big event, so I have to get in there and help them. If I have enough bar staff, I come in and I count the money that goes in register with my cashier and another bar staff person who signs off as cashier. I sometimes go home after this for a few hours, but I return before midnight to make sure cash from register is counted and balanced, then signed by cashier, and again another staff person verifies what they've counted. Then it goes into my safe. in my office. I then wait for tenants to remove all decorations and DJ to remove all their equipment, and then I lock all doors and set my alarm. Sometimes I may leave at 2 or 3 in the morning, depending on event. On Sunday morning, I meet my cleanup crew at the building to open door. This does get a little hectic, but I am a very responsible person, and I go home feeling like everything is fine. I've done everything. It probably would be okay that maybe one day we would look into hiring another person to help, but it would have to be a responsible and dependable person. I also spot check, making sure that building is spotless and restrooms are equipped with enough necessities. After each event, I send out an evaluation form for tenants to respond. As long as I have been sending these forms, all forms have come back with positive remarks. And I have brought some, if any of you would like to see any of them. I have them with me. I take inventory before and after each event. Balance inventory with registered tape so all products sold will balance with inventory. After I balance, I take my deposits plus all other rental fees that are paid to City Hall to our finance director, who signs off after she balances money against my cash sheet. I keep documentation of all these reports. After the finance director signs off on all these, I have a book that has all my deposits. I am also in charge of pavilion and arena rentals. With all this, I sometimes have to utilize park staff to help my one employee that I have to set up tables and chairs for each event, especially on back-to-back events. Because sometimes we may have a wedding on a Friday night, and then we may have another one on a Saturday night. I always make sure that every event presents positive net revenue, whether through rental fees, concession sales, or vendor rebates. I love my job, and I give it 100%, which takes 24 hours of my day. I was hired in April 2012, so it has been 8 months since I have been employed by the city of Floresville. Although I enjoy my job, there are some challenges that I do face, and maybe with your help I can get some answers. One is, do I cater to youth organizations that provide programming and support to our youth of Wilson County, or do I cater to the paying customer who calls constantly to rent spaces utilized by these programs at no fee? This has caused issues, so I need clarification. Also, my biggest challenge is pricing for use of classrooms, building, and arena. For instance, like giving 30% to nonprofit. Do we also need to evaluate concession prices? Again, I have no problem with following procedures that are in place now, but some of these issues do concern me, and I feel like some things need to change. Right now, we lease to Boys and Girls Club at no fee, Girl Scouts for $500 per year, Community Council for $500 per year, ACOG for $100 monthly. We also rent a piece of land behind Event Center for cattle for $200 monthly. I have one employee that works for me. I'm always open to suggestions or changes, so please, anyone that has different changes or suggestions, please let me know. I do want to say that Carolyn taught me very well in all that I do. Also, Andy is very supportive of decisions that sometimes I have to face. Thank you for allowing me here tonight. I hope I have been able to paint a clear picture as to what we have been doing at our building and the challenges we face. Again, I am extremely excited to be part of our team here at the city and appreciate the opportunities. I will gladly work with Andy, with anyone Andy asks me to work with in order to accomplish the task we are facing.
Thank you, Ms. Gloria. Ms. Gloria has made copies of price sheets, of contracts, of anything that the board needs to get started. We're going to go and pass those out. One of the issues that I know some of the council members that have said, Andy, you're the city manager, you don't need to be promoting events, you don't need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. Agreed, very much so. The 4A board was working on that in conjunction with the office of the city manager. It kind of just got pushed off onto the city manager because of the staff that we've got. And I think that this new council has pretty much displayed the idea that they want the board to be back on track and more active, and I think the board members themselves have said we're willing and we're able and we're ready to go. So just a quick overview of what goes on over there. How many city employees are assigned to that department at this point in time, which it is a department in our budget. Gloria and one employee, both fall under the Parks Department.
Let me ask a question on,
Yes,
I don't know if I'm out of line, if I'm out of line, we'll get off of it. But, on the cleaning department, when they clean the event center after okay, they charge $350
Yes.
to do it, versus maybe an employee, the city employees that could maybe.
We've tried it,
We've tried it, but
and
it
we're willing
doesn't
to
work.
try anything. Again, there's been several processes to say, well, maybe we can do this, or maybe we can do that. And it starts off good, like many things, because we're compared to the show barn. If a cleaning crew says, well, clean the show barn, you know what, we'll take yours on, well, we're a lot bigger than the show barn, and they realize that pretty quick, so we've had to make.
Because I know that the person that was cleaning that, one of the persons, I don't know who cleans it now, or who's in charge of it, but
Yes.
supposedly if it's not too dirty, then Gloria cleans it, or maybe somebody else cleans it. That person doesn't come, she doesn't have a contract to come every, it just depends how messy it is.
That's correct.
Now, the $350, does it go to another person that cleaned it, or
No.
how does that work?
If it's not a contractual person that's doing that, then it just stays with the
But
rental revenue.
is it fair to the person that's in the contract saying, well, clean it this time and don't clean it the next? You know?
They don't have a contract.
Well, no, but I'm saying, you only want me to clean it when it's dirty versus,
Well, pretty much, yeah, that's the way it is.
And the way I look at it, Mr. Morones, is that why should we pay somebody that it's really not dirty, that my employee can do it that Monday morning? And I'm looking at the money too.
no, I understand that, but I'm saying, is it fair to a contractor to say, you know what, give them a contract and say, I'm gonna charge you less, but you know, I'll take the ones that are, you know, what I'm trying to say
Yes,
is,
sir.
is it fair to the contractor?
Well, it's all, if it's not something that the board will work on, or it's something that the board will.
And
need to
another
work
thing,
on.
like this past Saturday, there was a quinceañera out there. How did Ms. Martinez, she done this, that night?
No,
Were
I
you
have
able to
Alex,
done-
Alex helps me sometimes.
Okay, but when you said that your job was,
Well, it is my job, but a lot of times Alex can help me do
that's what I
that.
want, that's what I want.
And as far as the money, I balanced the money.
Okay, but after the night, Saturday night, quinceañera, what did that, you said you did that job a minute ago, but you never mentioned Alex, that,
That was my question. Like,
and I say Alex couldn't do it, then who else is gonna do it the following?
she read a lot of the stuff that she does. Okay, let's say that she gets sick. She gets sick on a Friday and you got an event Saturday. Who takes over for her?
It's gonna be one of the contractual persons that she has that can do that, and then a city staff member will collect that money.
And I think this discussion is very descriptive of why we're moving in this direction.
Sure.
Because one of the things that is problematic across the city, across departments, from permitting to water bills to FEDC, is that the procedures have not really been defined. You know, we've done it this way, it evolved. And we've got something that works, but now we need to take it to the next step.
Exactly.
And that's what we're looking for this board to be able to accomplish, is to really define some of these procedures for the staff that is out there, for the customers that are gonna be using the facility, to address things like, what are we gonna do if Gloria gets run over by a bus, or she gets sick, or she can't get out of the garage because the hail's piled up at the garage door? You know, how is that gonna happen in the operation of the facility?
Sure.
And need to move to that direction, so that it's not the city manager who's out there promoting the events and setting the policies and procedures of that event center, but it is this board doing. You know, that's where we're trying to move. As we discussed, or I guess about 6 weeks ago when we first met, the goal is down the road to be able to contract with somebody to operate that facility. That's a long road to get to, and we may or may not get there, but these are the first steps in getting. Sure.
And that was my only concern, to have the step to, you know, if I'm not in, where it says, you're in charge.
Sure.
But never I heard that who was in charge. And I know the job's gonna get done, but what are the other procedures?
Okay. Point taken, thank you.
We've had, when we had Alex and Carolyn both out there, it was they had backup for each other. And they could, if I'm not gonna be here this weekend, Carolyn could take it back and forth, between her and Alex. And, but we didn't have any other employees, and that was all we had. And it really gets hectic sometimes. I know when the mayor did her garden center thing out there, that weekend, the first year we did that on the weekend, we had 7 events in 5 days. And so all that stuff had to be torn down, rearranged, and moved in those 5 days, 7 different times. And people don't understand. I had people call and say, well, I went out there at 4 o'clock this morning and neither of them were out there. Well, they've been there since 2 o'clock in the morning and finally decided to go home. That's one thing we have to understand about them, that they're only people and they can only do what they can do. And when we only have 2 people out there, it's difficult. And that's where the city has come in. And that's sort of when I decided we needed help, that we couldn't afford.
Okay, Mayor, we can move on.
Next is the operational procedures overview.
Next.
Which is the financial overview.
Yes, ma'am.
So,
This is where we're gonna give you some more information, and we hope that you understand, that we understand that it's a lot of information to take in, but we have to start the process for us to move forward. The 4A is corporation, has been and always will be responsible for the debt service portion of the land, of the building, and when we finally finished in 2014, the equipment line item, which is Bank of America, Ms. Conley asked me about, that's a responsibility, nobody disputes it. In addition, now, after last year's audit, the auditor recommended that the operations end of that come into the overall city budget, and it's listed on there as a fund, civic center, event center.
The department in the
A
general.
department in the general fund, okay? So those two are the information that you'll receive by our comptroller, and then we can take it, and no rush, no anything on this one, because it's pretty important.
And it's my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the debt service is funded by the portion of the tax?
Sales tax, yes,
Sales
ma'am?
tax. Okay. Among other things, the sales tax isn't completely servicing
It's specifically just for debt service.
for debt service, okay. So the operations then are funded right now by the city?
Yes,
Okay.
in part, yes.
Okay.
In part. Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, I was gonna say something, Andy, I can't remember all the detailed things that I found in there, but, there was like, that also went towards the, revenue was like, for, their pay, and there's different things that I found in there that they added up to help with the income.
Yes. Ma'am.
Shiny, you got an extra one.
I'll get your copies of everything. She didn't have all that on it, so I'll get those. I'll scan them in and send them in.
Debt service? Which one?
I'm gonna, real quickly, this one sheet we put together is the general fund. The civic center and the operations is now under the general fund. As per the auditors, there are still some the other attorneys that do, I can't think of their name, Melissa and Rob. There are some questions on what kind of actions can y'all perform when it comes to the money, when it comes to what was the 4A created for. So there's still some discussion on that. We talked about that in the last meeting. But for the purposes tonight, where we are, for the auditors, or some recommendations from the state, the operations is now located in your general fund budget. So this sheet shows you, we pulled it out, but when you look at your overall general fund, which is your police, streets, parks, the particular department, its number is 520, 301 indicates the fund, so, but this is how it is right now. This is the budget that was adopted in September for the 12-13 year. The 4A's budget is the same, or not budget, excuse me, the 4A's year is the same as the city's when they were created, so. But this is actually a general fund budget. You can see you've got your civic center rental. We have it, when it was adopted as a budget, it's one line item was 182,000 as income, as budgeted. This is not, this is just budget again. And then this also shows you all the breakdowns from professional fees, office supplies, tools, equipment, telephone, advertising, equipment rental, licensing, cleaning, labor. When the people that work the concessions, they are paid contract labor, they're not salaried employees, they get a $10 an hour, so. Utilities, building expenses, which would be maintenance, etc. So that's the budget, and with that particular, would have actually, again, this is in your general fund, so this is pulled out of an overall budget, but it would show that it's gonna make $22,000. But there is the 2 employees that perform all the duties. They are located in your parks budget, and their cost approximately, that's just pulling the 2. Again, you have Alex sometimes that helps, so there's more cost, but just the 2 would be approximately $56,000. That's insurance, TMRS. So that's just the budget. It's in your adopted budget. So there, if there's any questions, it's pretty straightforward.
Is that an approximation of this?
Estimated for the salaries, yeah. We don't have it exactly. Again, that was just for 2.
Nora, that salary for the 2 employees is 56?
That's
and then you mentioned
benefits.
Something about Alex.
No, that's 2 employees approximately for benefits, salary, TMRS, retirement, which is retirement, health insurance. That's just a generally. But then you, like I said, there are other people that do help and do things besides those 2.
So let's get thrown in there too.
You could if you were, but again, those are under your parks department.
So it gets separated like during the day if he has to go to work for the parks department or his regular job duties?
Okay,
or-
the 2 that she's got, 2 employees, those 2 employees are strictly assigned there. That's their job. Gloria and the other gentleman, they're assigned, that's their department. Those are the 2 employees assigned from the city. The issue is, those 2 are Parks Department employees.
We don't have a way then of right now, if Alex is on the clock and if he's spending time doing event center stuff versus doing park stuff, of separating out that salary.
No.
That's what I think that's the point there.
Yes, no.
We don't have a way of separating that yet.
And again, some of the other guys may come help do other things, mow, etc.
But all the salaries are being funded under the parks department.
Yes.
Well, and that's all again under your general fund, which comes from property tax, sales tax, and not the same sales tax that the 4A collects for debt service. It's kind of, that's why this is a creature that's combined and separated.
Could I ask for a breakdown of that 56,000 for a one-timer?
Do what now?
A breakdown of it sometime this week?
Sure, yes, ma'am.
And how much money are we saving here on the cleaning, since the cleaning is 350 divided by 52 makes 18,000? How much did we actually save this year on that?
We don't have that information
On this year.
at this point in time for that.
Yeah, because y'all budget 18,000, which would make 350 times 52 is 18,000.
Well, that's also for the people that is on the line item for the people who work the concessions that help sell beer, the hourly, when they come in for 3 to 4, 5 hours on those events.
Because it's contract labor
It's
slash cleaning.
Right. Slash cleaning.
And then I'm from the old school, penny earns, penny saved.
Yes,
I like that. A penny saves, penny earned. The electric, it stays on all day long, 24 hours a day, lighting up the parking lot all night long. How come we can't turn that stuff off?
well, those are issues that the board will look at and take from us and say, these are our recommendations as a board, that we need to shut these lights off, we need to do this, we need to do that issue.
Aren't they turning a certain amount of the parking lights off?
Yes, I think they do
Yeah.
reduce in the evening.
But
We
on
looked
the
at
AC,
that once
there's an issue
before,
though.
Yes, we
and
can't turn that off.
there is a, because we do not have gates that control access to our parking lot, to our rear area back there. It's it can be a bad area for people to be
We
in.
usually create a job and have someone set up the gate and turn off the lights, and you have to give somebody else a job.
You think that would be less?
Less than
By
operating.
the time
I
you
don't
pay
know.
benefits?
By the time we pay
But that's a
medical
spot.
insurance,
May I add
they'll-
in?
Look at that.
Guys,
It could be-
let me, if we go, take a step forward to the consideration and action, okay? And let me break this down oversimply, Laura, and I know this is gonna be too simple, but there's two different sets of money, okay? That operate that event center, okay? And if we look at debt service, as an obligation of the event center, we gotta pay so much money in debt. But then we also have operations and maintenance, the utilities, the cost of doing business, okay? That money, right now, today, is being managed and spent, and the decisions for that are being made by the city. We want to move to a place where you as a board manage this money. Make those authorizations, make those procedures for the electric bill. Look at the day-to-day operations of that event center and be the ones that say, yeah, we are gonna pay this much money for this. Or, well, that's kind of a challenging thing to do in the middle of a fiscal year. Okay? In that the budget's already been approved. So what this one form is essentially that O&M budget that the previous council, through the previous 4A boards, approved. This is it, we can't change it, okay? This is what you're going to be managed, okay? And from this point forward, as a board, okay? Were there a lot of questions out there? Yeah. Was it the right thing to do with the electric bill? Is the cleaning the best process? Don't know. But you as a board, with the staff that you have there, are going to develop the policies and procedures. You as a board are going to say, okay, what's the best way to spend this money? Okay? For the utilities on the monthly basis. You're going to work with Andy and Laura to say, how are we going to authorize payments? This kind of process is unique because you're going to function like a department of the city, per se, like a department chief, like a police chief or the public works department chief. Okay? Saying, oh, here's my budget, I've got employee salaries, I've got this and that. Well, that's kind of true and kind of not true because we've got employees that are sitting over here in parks. When we get to the next fiscal year, I think we talked about it today, and there's some ways of making a separate accounting of all of that within our books to be legal to do that so it works for you. Because we've also got revenue. You talked about hay, you talked about the other stuff. The books they're there, the money is there, getting it compiled so that you guys can see it. This was one of the simplest ways of presenting it, and the funds. But then there's this other fund over here that you legally have the responsibility for. So we're going into two pieces of this. The intention today was to kind of give you an overview, let you look at this, what are the processes, what are the procedures we're doing now, get a look at the finances, and then say, okay, Andy, instead of the city manager and the city finance director overseeing the operations, which was a past city council decision, there's a consideration and action for this council to essentially rescind that directive and give that directive to this board. So that starting today, you can go forward in that O&M. Now, and God bless Gloria, she's gonna have Andy as a boss and you guys as a boss, you know? But I think together that we can move the event center down the road. We've gotta figure out, and Andy and I have talked about this at length, not only what do we know, but what do we not know? And there's a lot of stuff we don't know yet. And there's a lot of stuff you as a board don't know yet. Let's start identifying that so that we can fix that. We've got to figure that all out. We got to know what it's going to take to operate this facility before we can even talk about a contractor doing the operations of it. This is that first step. Okay? Is it going to work? I hope so. I think we have a board that's dedicated and wants to be involved in that. I know Bill is involved in this. I know Melissa, I know Paige, and I know Deb are all interested in all of this information, getting it. How do we go forward to do that? That's up to you. We're counting on you as a board, as a committee, as a department of the city to come up with ways to do that and then come back to us as a council and say, we want to do this and this is why. We want to change this practice and this is why. We want to put these rental fees in place and this is why. This is how we want to deal with volunteer groups, community service groups versus paying customers. How are we going to deal with it? Those are some big deals. The first step in that is getting a hold of the finances. And this is really seemingly very, very complex, but I trust Laura to do that. Okay, how much money do we have set aside for utilities for the events? It exists in there. It's a budget. What did we pay in October for utilities? She's going to be able to show you that. Okay, when it comes time to make payments for supplies and equipment, it's going to come through you guys. You know, you as a board are going to approve those payments. You'll work with Andy and Laura to develop a process that will do that. That's the action that we're looking to take out of this. We know there's a lot of problems. We know there's procedures that have holes in them. Okay? We know that down the road we've got issues with debt service too. Okay? Really, and Laura said something to me this morning about, you know, we really need to finalize a debt service budget. Okay, from the 4A. That's going to have to be an action that you as a board are going to have to do and work with Laura to do that. But this meeting is not to answer all of those questions, but just kind of, hey, this is where we're at, guys. Are you up to the task? Do you want to take on that task? And then if you do we as a council want to say, Andy, let's get you out of the operations of the event center and put the 4A board in charge of the operations of the event center. And that's the consideration and action that's on the agenda. And that's really the tone we wanted to go down. I don't want to get wrapped up into how we're doing the cleaning contract today, because you may decide you want to do that tomorrow. I don't want to get wrapped up on, do we turn off the lights or do we not turn off the lights? That is something you as a board are going to have to look at and make decisions and develop those policies, and then come back to the council and say, okay, here, this is what we want to do. Here's why. Great. And then in this process, the other piece of this is going to be, you know, this budget also projected us getting $182,000 in revenue. Is looking at this operation of this facility, are we meeting those goals? Okay, are we going to be short? Are we going to be over that? We need to be keeping a look at that. And if we budgeted $74,000 for utilities, is that really what our expenses are going to be? And it may come to a point, guys, where you're going to come back to the city council and say, hey, you know, we're going to need some more money. We're going to have these expenses. And it's going to have to be the council that's going to be making some budget amendments to do that. But we need to be able to look at the operation of the event center almost as a standalone piece. Unfortunately, because of the way previous auditor, the auditor made some recommendations in the books, because of the way operation maintenance and debt service is set up, it's not its own unique fund. Okay, so that creates some challenges on Laura's part in getting the information, but we're gonna get there. It's just gonna take some time to get the account set up so that we can look at the O&M of the event center as one fund. We can look at the debt service of the event center as one fund. It's just not gonna all happen this year. Okay.
Well, my question, is there a separate profit, or the profit and loss sheet for the event center? This is what was made for the last fiscal year.
In the past years, the way, when it was created, first was just sales tax, it didn't exist. Sales tax was money, voters voted on a bond, I mean, on bonds, you voted on to get the sales tax. And then in that, it said that the sales tax was to build a building, a facility, sports complex. It has a long little definition, we handed that out at our last meeting.
Right.
Then as it took off in 2010 once it was built, the 4A then was doing the books, and that money, that was happening on the 4A. That's no longer gonna happen, which is what Deborah's kind of asked for, some of the reports. That piece won't happen anymore. The operations and money will be either as a special revenue fund, which is still under it's a smaller fund, and it's just kind of general fund, and this is a lot of accounting terms, but general fund is your big money, and you have a special revenue fund, and it could create a special revenue. It will not have any tax statements, it will not go to the IRS, it's not that type of an entity. The debt service payments would fall under the 4A that has been created as a 501c6. That's all that's going to be there as of now. Last year it was still operating in that kind of a mix as of October 1st. So you won't have that anymore. Though basically the only line items, and I'm gonna hand that out to y'all. Actually, we can probably pass that out right now real quick. This is what really that budget is, how 4A's budget should be right now. There may be some changes, 1 or 2 lines, but basically the 4A corporation budget is gonna be sales tax revenue coming in, currently your concession money because of the beer license that's required, and the money going out will be your debt service payments and the concession money. So that's all the 4A budget's really gonna have. Now, what he's talking about, the O&M, is helping create the budget that will be adopted by council eventually, so.
So you really have two essentially operating budgets.
It is, in a
Okay.
sense.
One is a department that exists within the general fund. The employees are falling under parks. But then the 4A as a standalone, what is a 4A budget? It's debt service and concessions.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, exactly. So in the past, there were other things, but we are done with that. We have moved forward.
And this move is going to be difficult in that, but the first step is understanding that we're dealing with 2 different pots of money.
Right.
And Jim,
This
I think,
report, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think we're gonna have to get our hands on this before we can ever hope to market it to a managing fund.
Right.
Yeah.
If we can't get, we need to know how many dollars we're spending on this, I mean, which thing, what our profit and loss statement is as a board. Then someone would say, hey, that's interesting.
Because what I'm seeing right now is there's not enough income that it brings in to support all of the salaries and the operations
Right.
and everything.
That's not so common.
You have to
You
design
can't, yeah.
all of the extra people that is brought in and being involved in events. And I think, I'm game for moving it forward and making the changes that, Mr. Miller, I think it's a great idea. I just know that in the past, I've worked several events and we need those extra hands. Is it gonna be you and I out there moving tables or working the bar? That kind of a thing.
Well, and that's exactly what you're going to be getting balance around in this process is how much money does it actually take to operate this facility?
Exactly.
Granted, we're taking employees from the Parks Department. Okay, well, when we do a non-accounting P&L for an event, we're gonna take that into consideration. We're gonna take into consideration, the share of the utilities and all of these pieces right now that are being accounted for in 3 different places, with the goal so that we can look at the operation of this as not in the accounting sense, but as a standalone entity, okay? And because of the legal piece and because of what the law says about the 4A corporation, where the money is coming from that pays employees, we gotta do it this way in the accounting process. But your job is to kind of get a hold of it, maybe not from the accounting process, but more from the big picture piece of that. So that once we understand that big picture, because we're not gonna stop supporting the event center with employees.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that we understood, or the board understood. The office of the city manager and the staff, you know, at whatever time our meeting finishes, we're not gonna throw our hands up in the air and say, it's your baby. We would never do that, and we've never done that with Bill and prior board members. We're not gonna do that with you. What we are gonna do is make sure that you have the say-so. Your ideas are important to us. Your ideas are important to the council, and the success of that building is gonna rely on you. And that's an awesome task, but like the councilman said, you know, I think we know pretty much everybody. Ms. Pullen I met, but I've done some research on you, and I think that you're very capable of doing what needs to be done. And he's right. I think the mayor can speak, and Jim, because he and I spend a lot of time together, that work is work here. And if you can help me, am I gonna turn you down? Of course not. Am I gonna support the ideas of the council? Of course not. They're my boss. They tell me which direction I drive, and I drive. And that's the bottom line, and so does my staff. So we make sure that we understand that as of today, and I think that's the ultimate goal of today's meeting, is to say, you know what, you're back in the saddle, and we're helping. So.
And I think we'll have to take it piece by piece.
Right, sure.
It can't be done overnight. We're gonna have to manage this thing for a while before we can expect anybody else to manage it. And the thing that was always a problem for us, we had no experience in how to manage things. We didn't even have an idea about where it was going when it was built. So that was never clearly defined as to what it was supposed to do. Hence the issue of, do we cater to this group, do we cater to that group, do we do whatever? No, we want to serve the whole city. And we're going to have to learn to manage those things and have policies in place and procedures in place before we can expect anybody to come in.
Ms. Glover, are you game for working with both, or?
I'm ready to work with whatever,
Very good.
especially if I'm gonna get a lot of help. And that's why it was very important for me to go ahead and make copies of all these contracts of people that we're leasing to, so you can see what we do during the summer, our prices as far as all kinds of equipment and like Centus bill is extremely high because we go through, I don't know how many toilet papers, how many paper towels and all that, because we've got a bunch of people there that just use them constantly.
I hate that.
But
And I
if you go out to the gym on a summer morning and watch Coach Garza with those kids in that gym and see what benefit they're getting, it makes you feel a lot better about all the problems you have to go through to get there.
Mayor Gatsa, any comments from you or the other council members?
One thing that comes to mind is when Gloria was saying on her challenges, when she said, do I cater to youth organizations or do I cater to paying individuals? And my comment to that is, if we accept the youth organization to use the facility, we should treat them the same as if someone rented it, my opinion.
To what, Darren? I didn't get the
That
last
your
part.
question was, that do you cater to the youth organizations that are out there or to the people that are paying? And what I'm saying is, if we've accepted the youth organizations to use the facility, then yes, we should treat them the same as if they had paid.
Well, some of the
I
youth
think
organizations have to pay, a lot of people have to, or they have to pay to get into those organizations.
Yes.
So, I mean,
I
Of course,
think,
if
We have to look at the
wedding-
balance.
Yeah.
There's a fair balance in operating that facility. What we need to be able to do from a procedural perspective, and this is the piece, that if you're a nonprofit, here's the criteria. Okay, if you're a youth organization, here's the criteria, and we apply it the same across the board. And if you're a paying customer, here's the criteria, and we apply it the same across the board. And that's gonna be incumbent upon the board to develop those procedures and be able to come back and say, which is a fine balance.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at a facility that's got this kind of debt, you know, and you say, okay, where do we do this? Is the event center ever, in my mind, going to be a profitable organization to the city? Is it ever gonna not require money from the general fund to do its day-to-day activities? Probably never. But what we wanna do is reduce the amount of cost involved in that and balance the quality of life. You know, and I'm not a big fan of that term, but in the municipal community, we talk about a function of government to provide a quality of life, and we have that responsibility when it comes to the youth of our community, to the senior citizens of our community, to be able to support that. So that's one of the balances that you as a group are going to have to determine.
And that's where it's gonna help me as far as clarification, because, you know, I'm ready to work with whoever I have to work with. But that way I'll know, okay, my board says that these people I have to do this with, or what, just like Mr.
Our board's
Morones
gonna
was
have to
stating
come up with
about,
those guidelines, right?
about the cleaning. I wish that we didn't have to pay for cleaning, but we don't have enough staff to really get in there on Monday morning, especially when we have big weddings and all that. You know, I feel sorry for the people that have to clean because it is a mess. But I wish, I've thought about it before, like, okay, maybe James and Alex can bring a couple of guys in and we can clean on Monday morning, but we've tried it and it has not worked.
That worked out.
thank you, Ms. Laura.
I'm just excited to see it going on where we want it.
One question, Andy.
Yes, sir.
The EDC board is a 7-member board. Does the 4A bylaws specifically say that it's a 5-member board?
Yes, it is.
Okay, could this board add non-board members to committees? I believe they could. And I would encourage them to maybe take on these pieces as a board and separate out into some other committees and maybe bring in some of other interested parties that are not necessarily council approved, but may help you in accomplishing this. Otherwise, this is a huge, seemingly insurmountable task for 5 people.
Well, we had approached that at several different points. We had, when we were trying to get activities started, I asked for a meeting of people and we came out there and we came up with your activity I thought was really good. And things like that. And then, but there's times when we need help on other things, such as we need people who are good in finance. You know, how are we going to solve this debt problem when we get to it? And we need people that are competent in other areas that maybe one of our boards, our people could be the chairman of that board, which is a subdivision of this board.
And that's exactly what I'm saying, and that would be my encouragement to you at the city council meeting, is that you're looking for volunteers to serve on committees of the 4A and create the committees, and say Ms. Conley is your finance committee chair and chooses to get 2 or 3 other people to help her look at this, and then come back to the board with a recommendation on that.
Well, I think that would make the community feel better because you have more people involved that way. It's not some mysterious person sitting up here saying, well, we're doing this. You know, now there may have been 10 people, but nobody knows about that. So if we go out to the community and make people involved in some way or another, say, well, yeah, I'm definitely involved in that.
well, I think that, pretty beneficial in itself, because, you know, a lot of the, you know, citizens feel that they're left out and they wanted to give into it as well, but they're never asked because they don't know the proper people.
Right.
You know, so they, you know, they.
And there are people in this town that have unbelievable talents in certain areas. We've got a guy who taught finance at a major university here for 23 years. He's got to know more than I do. And so, you know, there's people like that that can help us and guide us.
Goes on your committee.
So.
Can I continue now? Okay, the last item is gonna be the proposed budget for,
And that's what,
is that what you gave to
that's
us
right,
right
yeah,
now?
we didn't, we kind of jumped.
Okay.
Just, that, what I handed you out on your next meeting, I would like for that to be on the 4A. There on the agenda to adopt this budget, but then when we have some future amendments coming in on the city's budget, this is gonna be incorporated, because just like the 4B, when they get their budget, it comes to council, council approves it, and it's incorporated in when they adopt their budget.
And this is specifically the debt service.
This is specifically the debt and the, yeah, so, you know, and again, I'll be doing the books, all of, you know, the activity, you've got this, they'll be occurring, you know, still all of, we'll be cutting checks through AP, you know, when someone was talked about the money, y'all be helping us, but if we have purchasing policies in the future, you're gonna have to abide by our purchasing policy, that's the, or as the city, because those will be policies that are auspiced underneath the council, so. But helping us find better prices and things, all of those things are great, you know, getting, you know, we love the help.
I think everybody brings great ideas to the table.
Yeah, so that's what that is, so, and then we handed, just so you I handed out the debt service payments, schedule, which you'll see, so you can kind of overview that, it's not difficult, it's just 3 line items. And then sales tax is just a recap of what's been going on, you can see, it's just history for y'all to read.
The other council meeting, you made mention about the software that you're using. Is it a problem, or is it something that we can?
This now, you are now, as of when I got here, we put you into our info. QuickBooks is no longer being utilized. It's over and done. It is a function in our software, it's multiple.
All the kinks have been, are being worked on.
We have, the reports weren't printing right, there were some things like that. But now, we won't have to deal with QuickBooks, checks aren't cut separately, and it'll be much simpler running reports.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there was a program that you were more, you know.
Now it's in info. Yes, now it's in the hub, which is your utility billing is in that same software, payroll is in that same software, it's all, QuickBooks is done and gone. For me, QuickBooks doesn't work because of the volume of books, but, so that's, yeah, just so you can kind of, but like I said, next meeting, I would love for y'all to put that on there to approve it, so that's your budget.
The 4A would approve it and then bring it back to the.
And then the council would, yeah, which is how the 4B does theirs.
Okay, and the last thing on the agenda, consideration and action to have the 4A board, the 4A Corporation Board assume the 4A board procedures to execute the budget.
And yeah, because the action is not, is really twofold, and we may have to do this again as a formal action. I think this action to have the 4A Board Corporation assume the 4A Board procedures to execute their budget is clear, and their budget is the debt service. That action is fine by itself. I think we're going to have to make a second action to rescind the previous direction and give the 4A board, you know, the day-to-day operational authority. That is coming. I don't think anybody in the council has any argument with that, but because it was not on this agenda, I don't think we can make that formal action, and we'll have to do that at a subsequent meeting.
Do I have a motion to table it?
No, I'm gonna go ahead and make the motion to have the 4A Corporation Board assume the 4A Board procedures to execute their budget.
But I'll second.
All in favor?
Now,
Does he have to have his board vote on that?
No.
That's just us, right?
No, you're just telling, in that motion, you're just telling us to do that.
Correct.
Directed, the motion carries forward.
And then we'll make the comment, and can't legally ask, but I think every member of this council agrees in the direction that was discussed, that this board move forward in the operation of that facility, and that the city staff do everything they can do to facilitate that.
As always.
Y'all happy with that?
Yes.
What is our next meeting date?
It's up to you. You set your dates. What happens is that we set a date for the 4A and it's a holiday. Because you said you usually typically meet on the third Monday of the month and that is a holiday. You have a secretary and a treasurer that really needs to coordinate with our secretary and start preparing agendas and getting all of that according to the board's wishes.
I can go the Monday before, the Monday after. Mondays are fine for me.
That would be the 14th.
Don't look at that calendar.
No, we changed it.
Yeah.
It's a
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, it's a good
It's
one.
the 14th or the 28th.
Yeah, it was this morning too.
14th is.
I thought about
the
water,
day when
making sure that.
Melissa Killen's office was thinking that y'all would have a second meeting, but
It's up to-
that hasn't
it's up to
been
the
set,
board.
As
so.
long as it's a Monday, it's good.
14th or 28th is it's 14 and second.
I think as you're moving forward, you may find that you're going to be needing to meet more than once or twice monthly as a board.
Are we doing the 6:30 or 7?
We've always done 7, but 6:30, if you want to do that.
6:30, much better.
6:30 is better.
I get too tired.
Just gives people who get back from
Yeah,
San
I
Antonio
agree.
a little bit, time.
With that, I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor.
The 4A board meeting, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion